I think a great movie quote is the quote that says, "You keep using that word, and yet I don't think it means what you think it means." That's also a very profound skill set of leaders, to listen closely to what people are saying, because often the words coming out of their mouth, even the actions that they perform, the things that they do, the daily habits, they look like something, but they're not really what they perceive they are. And what I mean by that is maybe the person you're observing tells you how they're doing good for you, or they tell you all the wonderful things that will be the result of what they're doing. But if you watch closely enough, the words they say, the actions they do, are belied by a different intent. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And I'm going to tell you just from a silly little search that I did last night. I was reading an older book, and in the book, a gentleman used a phrase talking about the qualities of a leader. And he said that a good leader would be irenic. Not ironic, irenic. Well, I have to be honest, I didn't have a clue what that word meant. I've never heard it. Never heard it used in a sentence. And in the sentence, I had a fair idea based on the context of the rest of the paragraph and even the page what the word irenic might mean, but I've never seen the word used before, so I had to look it up. I pulled out my phone and my handy-dandy Webster's dictionary on my phone, but before I did that, I just went to the little search bar at the top of the page and I typed in the word irenic. Well, of course, it starts to fill in the predictive text, and you get that little search thing that says irenic definition, irenic pronunciation, use irenic in a sentence, etc., etc. But here was the baffling part to me. Normally, you might see the word that you're searching and meaning, or the word you're searching and definition, or the word you're searching and even the history of. And if you're searching something that might have say a presence in Wikipedia, you might also see that in the predictive text, in the fill in the sentence part. I took a screenshot of it because I didn't believe it. But what I saw in the predictive text, just tap here, we'll finish in the sentence for you in your search and give you the answer that you're looking for, was a name. In fact, the name of an individual and the name of an organization. I screenshotted that and I left it on my Facebook page. I'll let you go find that if you're curious enough to know, but I was baffled when I read the definition of the word irenic, trying to match in my mind why in the world, not Google, not Merriam-Webster, but Apple, my Apple device, in the keyboard predictive text, filled in this name in relationship with the meaning of the word irenic. The word irenic means striving for peace. That individual, that personality trait, that quality of a leader that says, I want peace at all costs. In fact, the word implies that this is a person who, even under severe hostility, even while being really mocked, really aggravated, really annoyed, really provoked, would respond with a desire for peace. Well, I have to be honest and say that's not me. I have proven to fail at that very concept. Irenic is not a word you could use to describe me. Maybe one day I'll grow into that. I strive for that in certain areas of my life, but then there are certain areas of my life where I think the passion that comes out of me, the righteous indignation, if you will, the frustration, the annoyance, the passion to see things done properly, I don't know that I want that to go away. I don't know that I want to extinguish that fire. But the word irenic, I don't believe describes George Soros either, and yet that's what Apple predictive text gave me as a name. So back to my point of leadership. How often do you find yourself in a place where the words and the deeds that are being portrayed to you, that are being put in front of you, whether you're talking about an individual in the workplace or you're talking about society at large or you're talking about the media's depiction of an event, How often do the words and the deeds project to you a certain meaning, a certain implication, a certain understanding, and yet something in your soul says that's not really what's going on here? I mean, I hear the words that are coming out of your mouth, but they're not backed up by history. They're not backed up by even your behavior. There's an incongruence between the things that you say and the things that you actually do. There's an incongruence between the who that you are and the words that you say. See, leaders have to have the ability, this special gifting. It's a skill set that you've got to be able to take from your own natural intuition and hone by the practice of constantly asking the question, are they going to do what they say they're going to do? And when they do it, is it matched with the intent in their heart and soul? Because if it's not, then you may have somebody who's intentionally misleading you. And we've all encountered the used car salesman, the politician, the communicator who's really slick. They have the ability to parse meanings and to mince words in a way that at the end of their talk, at the end of their presentation, you're not even sure what it was that they were talking about. They may have inferred or implied or insisted certain ideas that if they gave them to you word for word, deed for deed, if they did what they really intend to do right out in the open, they would face great resistance and maybe even hostility. But because they have the ability to mince words, to parse meanings, to change definitions on the fly, to tell you basically what they want you to think about what they're doing, not to analyze what they're actually doing, they've had great success with ill intent, delivering to you behavior, action, and responses that were not what you expected for them to deliver. I know this message may seem to some a little bit cloaked, a little bit vague, a little bit contrived. Trust me when I say it's not. Not because I told you to trust me, but because if you have been engaged in just watching our social structure over the last 18 months, you've seen grand displays of people saying one thing and doing another, of saying what their plan is for you, but when you see that plan walked out, you realize what they said linguistically, even what they did in the setup, is not the outcome that we have. We don't see the results right now of all the promises that have been made. What we see is a bad result that's not attached directly to any of the promises that were made. And we have to ask, did we know that it was going to do that it was going to have that outcome? Were we lied to about what that intent was? As leaders, it's our job to figure that out, to observe closely enough to know not just what's said, not even what's done, but what's intended on the grand scheme of things before we sign on as leaders, before we buy in as leaders, before we help get other people moving in the same direction. I want to challenge you as leaders to take some time, listen to the words that are being said, watch the behavior that follows them, not just the body language and the facial expressions at the time that the words are said, but the deeds that have been done before and after the declaration. And then ask yourself, what's the real intent behind this? Whether it's people you lead or people who lead you, you need to understand that the intent doesn't always line up with the words and the deeds. And when they're not the same, action is required on your part. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.